UFC Fight Night Vegas 104, Vettori versus Dolidze 2 takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting at the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card. It's terrible. It's so bad! It's so bad! It's terrible. It's such a bad card. There are some fights of interest, but I'm at my limit here. Okay, UFC? I know what they're trying to do. The UFC knows that I have to break down these cards, so they're pushing me to the very edge to see if I'll quit YouTube. That's what they're trying to do. You may notice this has taken until Thursday for me to commit to this video because I was too busy having fun with other videos first, okay? I just want to go live, man! But this sits in the back of my head every week with these terrible Apex cards, knowing you got to break it down. You've broken down every one for the past 6 years. You're in too deep. You have to keep going. We're going to start. This isn't even, I'm not even sponsored right now, guys. Okay, I'm done. I've completed the contract. We'll see if I bring it back. But honestly, I'm glad this one ain't sponsored because it's not worth it. Okay? Yuneisy Duben, or Juneisy Duben versus Carli Judice. We're going to get wild with the picks. Okay, I've got some crazy underdogs. Brace yourself and hold on tight. Yuneisy Duben is going to beat Carli Judice. She'll win. Judice isn't all that. She's somewhat good at striking and she's rangy, but she's one of those girls that just don't have that oomph in her punch. You know what I'm saying? That one where you got to check the Adam's apple after the fight real quick just to make sure. She don't have that ability, okay? So she's got a little bit of like early days original title run Ioanni and Jacek style. In terms of her striking, like rangy stuff, not too much pop in anything that she does, but she's nowhere near that level. Don't get me wrong. Nowhere near that level. She had a really fun fight on the Contender Series, so I do think this is going to be a bit of a scrap. But you know what? She's won 2 split decisions in a row. They've been good fights. She hasn't really beaten any. I'm actually going to go with the underdog here of Yuneisy Duben. She's undefeated, 6-0. She trains with Rose Namajunas. She trains with someone else that's pretty good as well that will pop into my mind at any point in a second. She trains with Miranda Maverick. That's a good sparring partner to have. I think she's well-rounded enough to mix this up against Carli Judice. And she's got power to knock people out, which is impressive to me in that division of women's 125 pounds. And she's got big tits as well, so I kind of just want to pick her just in case there's a chance years down the line that she'll reach out. I don't know what to say. But I'm going to go Yuneisy Duben. She's hot and dangerous and well-rounded and nasty KO win on the Contender Series. She was sick 3 days before that fight on the Contender Series. Don't you guys understand? This is something you'd only understand if you'd been paying attention to all of her recent Instagram posts. Okay, guys? Real research has been done here. We're moving on. I'm going to go Yuneisy Duben as an underdog. We move on. Josiane Nunes versus Priscila Chachoeira. So, this one's, you know, I'm glad they're putting these early on the card. I'll be real with you. I'm going to go with Josiane Nunes. She's just a menacing little goblin. Really, really dangerous stuff. I reckon she'll go out there and, if not, chomp a finger off of Priscila Chachoeira. Probably take her out with some big punches. Priscila Chachoeira, she might be the first women's MMA fighter to get CTE. There's going to be a viral video of her in the future, I would imagine, where she's like recording her dad in her kitchen. Saying that he's been cloned by the CIA. She got beaten up badly by Jasmine Jasudavicius and then submitted. Miranda Maverick dealt with her pretty easily as well. She beat Ariane Lipski, I guess, which is a decent win. Yi Young Kim, I thought she lost that fight, but it was very fun. But I really thought she lost that one. Missed weight against Robertson and lost. Got fucked up ages ago by Shevchenko. I just lost to Molly McCann. That's a bit of a red flag. No offense. I know Paddy pays attention now, but just saying, in terms of, you know, if you're going to be a promising future prospect, I'm going to lean towards Josiane Nunes here. She hasn't had her own greatest performances, but Big, powerful dude. Probably will get a nice KO here or maybe a beat down over 3 rounds. Very dangerous puncher. I don't see Priscila Chachoeira effectively out-grappling her at any point. So I'm going to go with Josiane Nunes getting this one done. We move on. Andre Lima versus Daniel Barez. Here's the problem with Daniel Barez. He's actually all right, and his grappling is a treat to watch. But you know at flyweight, yeah, they all are good, so you can't let that fool you. Sometimes you'll see someone at flyweight and think, damn, he looked pretty good. And trust me, he looked all right against Victor Altamirano. Very close fight, very, very close fight. I just feel like he has trouble at times. I think Andre Lima's the more well-seasoned fighter. He's undefeated for a reason. 10-0. Again, he hasn't really made it too clear himself, but when you think about Manel Cap and how close of a fight he had with Felipe Dos Santos, that doesn't look too bad. That really doesn't look too bad for Lima. He's a big dude for the division as well. Igor Severino was a good prospect, and he resorted to trying to take a chomp out of Andre Lima in the middle of their fight. Before that, he had a win over a fucking 14-1 opponent on the Contender Series. This guy has been tested every step of the way. He really has. So he was a kickboxer first, had a bunch of experience in kickboxing and modified kickboxing. So his records in combat sports, a lot of times you see these MMA fighters' records that are coming up these days. It's all in MMA. This guy's got like hidden experience elsewhere. I think he's got like 10 or 12 kickboxing matches that we know of. So I'm going to side with Andre Lima over Daniel Barez. But I know the UFC are probably pulling for Daniel Barez because he's Spanish. So keep an eye out. If it's a close, controversial fight or a close fight, and you see the odds like swing into Lima as a favorite, maybe some live odds on Daniel Barez. They really want Spanish talent right now, and he is actually Spanish. I know they have Ilia Topuria, but him and Joel Alvarez are the ones they're really probably looking to get behind here. So I'm going to lean towards Andre Lima, though. I think he's a more talented guy out of the two of them, and I think he's more effective on the feet, and I don't think he's got a massive weakness in his ground game. So we move on. Up the card. Sam Hughes versus Stephanie Luciano. Just give me one moment, please, to just recompose myself. Just had to like compose myself real quick. I don't know. I'll lean Stephanie Luciano here. She showed improved takedown defense. She was getting taken down quite a bit on the Contender Series, but she's tall for the division. She looks like she's got some nasty striking, to be fair. Digs in with her shots, plants her feet when she throws punches. I mean, we're talking revolutionary skills here at women's fighting. Sam Hughes is fucking fraud checked so many fighters, though. So many women's MMA prospects think they're hot shit until they run into Sam Page, which is a fucking nickname. Victoria Dudikova was kind of shit, though, in general, I thought. And she lost to Sam Hughes, but it was a close fight, but she did get out-grappled. But then again, I think that Sam Hughes... Oh, what am I even thinking of? Dudikova didn't even look that good against Jinyu Frey and Estela Nunes, who got injured in their fight as well. So even though Dudikova had racked up some big wins and she's kind of cute, so the hype was there, I don't think she was all that of a prospect in general. I mean, we're talking about an elbow TKO finish over Fatima Klein here as well. People forget, man. Look what she did to Fatima Klein. Oh, God, no. Stephanie Luciano, in her last 2 fights, she's fought the same opponent who has wanted to take her down the entire time. I think the last fight that she had, the opponent shot like 24 takedowns, and she couldn't keep the takedown. And she ended up battering this girl in the 3rd round as well, and should have won on damage anyway, and we know they're really giving it to damage. Mayrin Santos got the win over Francis Marshall here, guys. So I'm going to go with Stephanie Luciano. I don't think the judges will even let Sam Hughes get another fraud check at women's MMA. I just don't think so. I don't see it. Even if she wins, I can just see them robbing her to be... If we're just keeping it real at this point in MMA, even if she wins, they'll be like, fuck this bitch. She's beaten 3 prospects back to back. No. This time, I think Stephanie Luciano's going to win. And her takedown defense against the same opponent who wanted to take her down did improve drastically between fights. So it's obviously something she addressed. We move on up the card. Josias Musasa versus Carlos Vera. Guys, I'm not kidding you. Carlos Vera is literally about 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. He's 37. All right. What are we doing here, man? What are we doing here? He's training at 50-50 Martial Arts Academy, which maybe you'll think that's like a coin flip type of academy, which does represent his record quite well, but it's actually just 50-50-year-old men training together at a martial arts academy. That's actually what it stands for, if you guys don't know. So I'm actually, this guy got smoked by Rinya in the grappling. He had some submission ability, but let me tell you, I think this is guaranteed money on Josias Musasa. I actually thought he could have... It was a very close fight that he had on the Contender Series with that Georgian guy, 10-0. But the guy was the favorite coming in against Musasa. And he ended up losing because I think Musasa did a bit more damage and he had better body language. It was a very close fight. And he was the one pushing forward. And eventually it started to look like the Georgian dude was desperate for the takedowns. Before that fight, he had a lot of finishing potential on the feet in his career. I think he will finish Carlos Vera on the feet quite easily. I'm going to say first round TKO for Josias Musasa. But even if he doesn't get a first round TKO, against a Georgian dude on the Contender Series that had a good grappling background, he showed great ability to get back up to his feet and stop all of those offensive takedowns. So I think he's all right. I don't think he's going to be anything, but I think he's all right. I'm going to go Josias Musasa. I don't think Vera's all that at all. He's too old and he's shit. And he's on a 2-fight losing streak in the UFC, I'm pretty sure. So, and he was shit on the Ultimate Fighter as well. Why is he here? What's going on, man? What are we doing? You can't sign Ivor Hardwick, brother, but you can sign these guys. Sometimes you look at someone and you think about someone on the regional scene and you think, what the fuck are they waiting for in the UFC? It's all good. Josias Musasa is probably going to win by first round TKO. We move on. Seung Woo versus AJ Cunningham. AJ Cunningham is fucking based, okay, guys? So I really want to pick him to win. But I do think that Seung Woo is probably going to win. I will say, if he can't implement takedowns early and get those big explosive movements off early in this fight, I could see AJ Cunningham getting it done against him because Cunningham has had a rough... I might go AJ Cunningham, but I don't want it to be like, oh, you're just picking anyone who's based. But AJ Cunningham is... it's Bryce Mitchell's right-hand man. That is true. Okay? Take that however you want to take it. But this guy is... This guy... if Mitchell's big A, this guy's Goebbels. You know what I mean? This guy... he flies under the radar, but he's there as well. He's Bryce Mitchell's top guy, if you know what I'm saying, guys. So listen, if Seung Woo can't get the takedown, normally there's an allegiance between these two types. But either way, if Seung Woo can't get the takedowns early, we could see AJ Cunningham gassing him out as the fight goes on. I just think AJ Cunningham, it's hard to go with him because we've never seen that momentum from him. You know what I mean? We've never seen him get the ball rolling. And that's tricky to do in MMA. If I had him, had a bit more momentum here, then maybe I would say otherwise. But I remember he was supposed to fight Chachoeira. I think he got injured there. Then he was out. And then the last fight that he had was Ludwig Klein. And I know he took it on short notice, but Ludwig Klein fucked him up in that fight pretty bad. That's hard to unsee as a predictor of fights. So I'm going to go with Seung Woo. I think he's underrated. He's fought some good comp coming through Road to UFC. Even though people just sort of diminish the level of the guys coming through Road to UFC, it's still better when you have the UFC spotlight over some kind of regional competition to get into the sport because you know they're picking the best guys. There's no cherry picking in Road to UFC. It's chosen for you. And whenever someone goes through that, I think, okay, he's really about it. You know what I mean? He's not some guy that sort of frauded his way into the promotion. So if he doesn't have a good first round, I mean, what am I thinking here actually, though? Because he's not all that. I might go, you know what? I might go AJ Cunningham. Because is he going to get out? If he trains with Bryce Mitchell all the time, am I sure he's going to get out grappled by Seung Woo? Am I going to go with another underdog on this card? This one's going to be a wild one in terms... If I'm correct on this one, this will make or break me. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why Seung Woo's a 7-1 favorite. Just keeping it real. I have no idea why he's a 7-1. I'm going to go Seung Woo. But I think there is a lot of value on AJ Cunningham because there's potential there. But he just needs to get the ball rolling. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It's tough to get the ball rolling against someone who's already got that momentum going into the matchup. So I'm rooting for AJ Cunningham here. Believe me, brother. I'm rooting for you. But I'm going to go with Seung Woo getting this one done. Prove me wrong, AJ Cunningham. Prove me wrong, brother. We move on. Cortes-Acosta versus Ryan Spann. Am I wrong to say lighter man skill? This ain't some fat heavyweight. Ryan Spann's going to knock him out. Am I wrong to say that? Waldo Cortes-Acosta, not that long ago, nearly got fraud checked by Jared Van Diyar. That's a real thing that happened. Okay? That's a real thing that happened. He did. He arguably lost that, by the way. I thought he did, because you've got to consider the damage that he took to the legs in that fight. Now, since then, you know, Chase Sherman is a win that he has. That was by decision. Arlovsky by decision. And Rebellis to Spain, he ended up taking him down and exposing that part of his game. If he goes for takedowns like that with his head on the outside of a single leg, like he's been doing against these other opponents, against Ryan Spann, he's getting fucking guillotined. Ryan Spann can grapple offensively. He's dumb. He's a little bit like the Jalen Turner of the light heavyweight division. I think that's a very fair comparison, okay? In terms of their fight styles, of course, is what I mean by that. But still, lanky guy, tall for the division, bad IQ moments quite often. I think he's a bit like the Jalen Turner, where there's potential there where you're like, listen, if you put Ryan Spann in there with a top contender, you would be worried. Even though you would pick against him, you'd be worried, you know? Ryan Spann versus Yuri. Even though I would pick Yuri and everyone would pick Yuri, he's still someone that you always have to be like, but watch out. You know what I mean? Like, he's still dangerous. People forget. Like, Joe Rogan to be talking. People forget. He's got touch of death in his hands. Things like that would be said about him. I'm going to go Ryan Spann. I'm going to go over Ryan Spann over Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I believe in light heavyweights succeeding at heavyweight. This guy's 6'5", 79 inches of reach. Probably 6'4" if we're being honest. You know, OSP easily dispatched him, so he's off of momentum. Was that at a heavyweight as well? Was that at heavyweight? Let me find out if that was at heavyweight real quick. No, it was at light heavy. Fair enough. Well, maybe the rematch was at heavyweight. Let me check this real quick. He guillotined him. I think it was at light heavy. Yeah, it was. Okay, but he's had some time to build up. Lost to Bogdan Guskov, but he hit Guskov with some big shots, which is what I'm saying. Like, these guys are light heavyweights. He should have beaten Smith. I have no fucking clue how he lost to Anthony Smith. Got beaten by Krylov, but they were scrambling around like maniacs. And that's what I'm talking about. Heavyweights don't have scrambles. This guy slept Dominic Reyes. He beat Ion Cutelaba. It's actually a pretty well-aged win. Cutelaba's starting his title run right now. Yeah, fuck it. I believe in Ryan Spann. I have a theory about fat heavyweights like Waldo, I just think Ryan Spann is like had to be a lot better to get where he's at than Waldo Cortes-Acosta has had to be. So I'm going to go with Ryan Spann getting this one done, I think. We move on. Yes! Yeah! Kevin Vallejos, man. Kevin Vallejos versus Seung Woo Choi. Let me tell you about Kevin Vallejos. I've been waiting for this debut. Real ones have been waiting for this debut. I'm going with Kevin Vallejos. This is the people's main event, okay? You might not know it yet, but you will after this. Kevin Vallejos is the real fucking deal, okay? 14-1, Argentinian prospect. This is going to be the Ribovic that makes it, okay? I believe in him. I reckon Vallejos has got it. His striking is sick. His head movement is good. He just looks like he's not going to get chinned. Cut to him getting chinned. No, he just looks like he's not going to get chinned. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but certain people have a level of head movement and understanding where I don't worry about them getting knocked out. And Seung Woo Choi has got such a bad chin. That has to be mentioned. He's big, and Vallejos isn't the biggest for the division, so I think he will have a frame advantage over Kevin Vallejos, but he gets chinned too much. I've seen him wobble too much, you know, and against people that don't really hit too hard. People that you wouldn't expect him to get chinned by. I think Mike Trezano knocked him out. You know what I mean? And before that, they knocked each other down at the same time in round 1. With what looked like nothing shots. Only shit fighters can beat Julian Erosa. And he beat Julian Erosa. But only the terrible can beat him. Any prospect loses. Christian Rodriguez will go on a fucking run of beating Cameron Simon, Raul Rosas Jr., and then Isaac Dulgarian, off the top of my head. I think that's correct. And then he'll just go out there and fucking lose. And he beat Austin Bashi, and he'll just lose to Erosa. Only the trash can beat Julian Erosa. He beat John O'Aarons. Yeah. Steve Garcia, he lost to, got knocked out. There's a lot of knockout losses I'm noticing in his history of his career. And he's fought 3 times since November of 2022. And he's only had 4 fights scheduled. So that tells me injury plagued. I'm going to go with Vallejos. Momentum's on his side. He took time after his Contender Series win, which I like. He's a young fighter. He shouldn't be rushing this. He's only 23 years old. And the big thing about Kevin Vallejos that you need to go and check. You know this Gene Silver kid that you guys are hyping up? Let me tell you about Kevin Vallejos. When he was, and let me do the maths on this. When he was 21 years old, he took Gene Silver to a decision on the Contender Series that was very competitive. And he won the first round against him as well. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to beat Gene Silver. You know? Even though I wasn't paying too much, let me take that back. I wasn't saying, oh my God, he's going to beat Gene Silver. I wasn't too big up on Gene Silver yet. I'd seen some highlights of him fucking climbing on the cage and screaming and stuff like that. But I thought, oh my God, this guy's got this one. Like, the momentum looks like it's on his side. And after that, Gene Silver kind of bounced back in the second and third. He just had a bit of a power advantage and a size advantage over Kevin Vallejos. But Vallejos stayed in there. Defensively responsible. Rolled with shots well. Took shots very well. Which, even though people say if you get hit a lot, you don't have good defense, I actually disagree. Choosing when you're allowed to be hit is a different thing. You know what I'm saying? So he gets hit by shots, but those shots aren't ones that are going to KO him. The ones that are going to chin him, he's way out the way of them. But the ones that hit him, he's rolling with them well. You know, he's picking his poison against a dangerous guy like Gene Silver at 21 years old on the Contender Series. Bright lights. I like Kevin Vallejos. I think he's going to go far in the division. And if he gets beaten by Seung Woo Choi, I'll be very surprised. But then I'd definitely advise him to move down a division if he does. But I think he's going to get this one done. I believe in Kevin Vallejos. Ton of hype on him. I reckon he pulls it off and gets a finish in the second round. TKO. Maybe late in the first even as well. Very, very good fighter. And he had a really nasty, like, fucking 20-punch combination finish on the Contender Series as well. And he follows me as well. And he shouted me out once. So shout out to Kevin Vallejos. We move on. Diyar Nurgozhay versus Brendson Ribeiro. I'm going to go with Diyar Nurgozhay. Kazakh guy. At this point, you got to start considering those things. These guys have been coming over to the UFC and doing really good work. Big dude. Not the longest of reach. But he's well-rounded, and he's got a lot of power. Oh my God, though. I don't know what to do with some of these. He has submission ability. He's had, like, leg locks, Kimuras in his career before. He's got submission ability off of his back in moments. Against very low-level comp, don't get me wrong. Won on the Contender Series very impressively. But this is after he took, like, a year and a half hiatus after he won his regional title at Eagle FC. Which was the Khabib promotion that got done. I don't want to make accusations, but I think there was some shady business going on with Mr. Humble, Mr. Morally Sound Khabib that ended up having that promotion shut down. I am, brother. I never take a foot wrong, brother. Of course, either way. Then he went to UAE Warriors, beat a guy there who was a bit of a veteran. You know what I mean? Even though he wasn't the best, he had a ton of fights. He-Man, Argentinian himself. I don't know why I said that, but Vallejos was Argentinian in the very last fight I broke down. He'd fought in bare knuckle MMA. He fought in the UFC before, or the PFL, sorry, against Antonio Carlos Jr., who's a good UFC vet at the time. So he had a lot of experience. He beat Bozigit Atayev. That's a fucking solid win for a regional fighter at PFL. This guy's a PFL winner. You know what I mean? So I'm actually... Chris Camozzi? I know they're old names, but Jordan Johnson's a good win. He beat Bozigit Atiev twice. I thought he only beat him once. He fought Vinny Magalhaes, dude. What the fuck? Where does PFL finding these guys? Jesus Christ. PFL must be like leaving out like Werther's originals on the streets and just like waiting with a big net in a bush until like some old UFC veteran like shows up, or MMA veteran in general, because Jesus. But I think the guy that he beat was pretty underrated, even though the record looks ugly. 24-13. You see that and you go, yuck. But for the guys that he's fought and the amount of time he's been at the PFL, those are good wins. And this guy beat him and knocked him out. And then he knocked out another guy on the Contender Series and had a nasty head kick TKO, if I'm not mistaken, after some like competitive rounds before that. But he's big, he's dangerous, he's got power, he has a well-rounded game. I didn't like the way that Brendson Ribeiro looked against Machado. Machado was just a mid-heavyweight. They had a decent performance against Mick Parkin, the great Mick Parkin at one point. But other than that, he lost to Gadziaslov, but he had decent takedown defense in that one. So I don't think this is going to be a situation where Nurgozhay is going to like ragdoll him or like use takedowns to win. But I think he'll be able to knock him out on the feet. Mingyang Zhang got a nice KO over him as well. Mixed results for Brendson Ribeiro recently. So I'm going to go with the momentum of Nurgozhay, I think, for this fight. And I'm going to say TKO win in the first round. Big debut win. We move on. Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. I'm going to go with Damon Blackshear. I think Damon Blackshear is pretty underrated. He had a really good fight with Mario Batista. Really good fight. I think Damon Blackshear is very underrated, in all honesty. Very good fight with Mario Batista. Knocked out by Montel Jackson immediately. But I think Montel Jackson is actually a very I actually said that Montel Jackson was going to be a prospect. I think in like 2019 on my channel. When he had not even got to the UFC, really. Or maybe he had just got to the UFC. But I was like, dude, Montel Jackson's someone you got to watch out for. I made a whole prospect spotlight video on him, I'm pretty sure. Saying that this guy, one day, he's going to be something. You know what I mean? Randomly. I know, not randomly. I did see the potential in him. He's very good, and he's got wicked takedown defense. And he's got... Interesting fact about Montel Jackson. He's got the same glove size as Brock Lesnar at bantamweight, which is fucking insane, by the way. So I don't blame this guy for getting knocked out by Montel Jackson. And wicked takedown defense. I remember the takedown defense clinic that he put on Brett Johns. Even though it was a very close fight, the amount of takedowns that he stuffed in that fight was insane. I'm going to go with... he just submitted Cody Stamann easily. Momentum. 50k performance bonus. A lot of these cheap... I don't want to say cheap. A lot of these poor guys at the bottom of the division... when they get that performance bonus, it's investment into their next training camp as well, to make them healthier, to pay for recovery, to bring that extra international sparring partner in, to make sure that, you know what I mean, their nutrition's on point, to get that nutritionist. So I like that momentum for a young up-and-coming fighter, and Cody Gibson just doesn't seem to have finishing ability whatsoever. Didn't like his performance against Miles Johns. I thought he could have done a whole lot more, but he just didn't. Brian Kelleher is a win I just don't really rate. Chad Anheliger is a good win that he got, but I didn't really rate that too highly either. So I think this is going to be a big, talented, athletic prospect that he runs into. And I actually think that Cody Gibson's going to get buzzsawed in about a round. So I'm going to say first or second round finish for Damon Blackshear. I think he's pretty underrated. And he could have actually been scored that Mario Batista fight. If he was called Demoniov Blackshearov, I'm telling you, he would have been given that fight against Mario Batista. We move on. Up the card, Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Holloway. I'm going to go with Alexander Hernandez. I like him at lightweight. Does anyone else like Alexander Hernandez at lightweight? He keeps moving down to featherweight anytime he gets a bit of momentum in the lightweight division, and then just gets fucked up or gasses out. So I like him at lightweight. He's coming into his prime. I just had beef mince. Trains at Factory X Muay Thai now. Was a little all over the place. I remember at one point he was training at Team Calbon with Darren Till and his coach. And either way, he's found a home. He lost to Damon Jackson, but he missed weight. Lost to Bill Algeo as well. But Bill Algeo beat Joe Anderson Brito as well. So he's pretty talented. I hate that they let him go from the company. I thought he was always a fun fighter. But he beat up on Jim Miller. That's impressive to do as a lightweight, especially in 2023 before the Bobby Green massacre. You know what I mean? So I thought that was pretty good. He kind of stopped Miller with momentum, like when he had momentum going into that fight. So I'm going to side with Alexander Hernandez. Wasn't the greatest performance against Austin Hubbard that he had, which is kind of interesting to go with. So that's interesting. And obviously Austin Hubbard lost to Kurt Holobar. Holobar's good, but he just seems to be a bit of a boxer with good combinations when he's got you backed up against a cage. I think Hernandez is the right sort of shot selector to pick shots at him and be able to chew up his legs. Like, I can see a lot of inside low kicks from Alexander Hernandez here, front kicks to the body, offensive takedowns as well while he's fresh. So I'm going to side with Alexander Hernandez, and plus you've got to consider the reality that Kurt Holobar is how old now? Let me find out just how old Kurt Holobar is, because I'm pretty sure he's getting up there in age. He's 38 years of age, 21 and 8. 28 and 1 would have been an insane record. Beat Kraszewski in his last fight, lost to Trey Ogden before that. I don't know about you guys. I think Alexander Hernandez is just a tad above Trey Ogden. My personal opinion. So I'm actually going to go against Kurt Holobar, and I'm going to go with Alexander Hernandez. We move on to the co-main event. Alessio Zaleski dos Santos versus Chidi Njokuani. This is the co-main event of this fight night card. I want to scream with the thing over the mic. I'm not going to do it again, because the first one was organic. This one would just be too forced. But I need to scream into something. This is tricky. This is a tricky one. Because Alessio Zaleski dos Santos is the ultimate fraud checker. Is he not? He's been beating a lot of guys that I think there's no fucking way he should have won that fight. Going into it, Rinat Fakretinov. I don't know why he then targeted the body after hurting Rinat Fakretinov. He targeted the head over and over again after hurting Rinat Fakretinov to the body. He probably would have finished him outside of that. But there is something to say about Chidi Njokuani, where he is such a physical presence in the division. And those guys have seemed to have given Alessio Zaleski dos Santos some problems. Randy Brown gave him problems. Alessio is a rangy kicker, and he's 5'11" at welterweight, which isn't small. But I believe Chidi Njokuani's 6'3". He is 80 inches of reach. And for a guy who likes to keep everything pretty at range, like Alessio Zaleski dos Santos does, he fought the last guy that stepped in on short notice, beat him by KO. That was a pretty easy prediction to make. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, I don't think he's all that. And he went to a split decision with him. I think he won't be able to out-physicality Chidi Njokuani, who's got some of the nastiest clinch effectiveness. I don't want to say in the sport, but like for his like area in the rankings, he has really nasty clinch work. And he's done it like a few times against Dusko Todorovic. And he was like battering, what's his name in the clinch as well? Jared Gooden in their fight. The Reese McKee fight was pretty close, for fuck's sake. Oh my God. Lost to Gregory Rodriguez, but had him in all sorts of trouble. Was battering Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, but Oleksiejczuk just fucking walked him down and beat him. But they're big, tough dudes at middleweight. I don't know if Alessio's got that in his reserve at this point, you know, at 38. 7-inch reach advantage for Chidi Njokuani. Dangerous athletic dude for the division. I think it's going to take a little more than Alessio Zaleski dos Santos to beat him. I don't think it's going to take much more. I think that someone ranked will be able to do it. Like, I could even see like a, who's the welterweight bomb firm? Gabriel Bonfirm. I could see him getting down Chidi and subbing him. You know what I mean? That type of thing is probably going to happen to him at some point down the line. I think he might scathe by Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. And another thing you have to consider here, Alessio makes it close by decision quite a bit. And they pay him a lot of money. I'm not suggesting anything here. I don't think another close decision win is going to go to Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. And I don't see him finishing Chidi Njokuani. And I don't see him schooling him and winning all 3 rounds. This is going to be a 2-1 either way or a Chidi Njokuani finish. And I reckon they'll lean Chidi. I think they will. I'm going to go Chidi Njokuani here. I think he's a slight underdog, and I think there's good value on that, so check it out. We move on. Up the card to the main event. Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. I'm not just going to do this because he ignored my request for an interview. Okay? I messaged Marvin Vettori over a week ago saying interview ? With a pizza emoji, thinking it would entice him to do the interview. And then he said the M-word on Twitter, which I thought was near locking in the interview with me. Like, that was like subconscious code, like, yes, Guru, I'll do it. You know what I mean? But I thought Roman Dolidze could have won the first fight. I'm a big Marvin Vettori fan, and I was going into that first fight with Dolidze. I think Dolidze could have won that, to be honest with you. I was watching it back, and even though he didn't land as clean as I thought he did watching it first of all, and I did maybe like give leeway to Vettori being like, okay, well, he was chewing up the leg of Dolidze quite a bit. I question how much damage Vettori's going to continue to be able to take. The Cannonier fight was genuinely a career-changing fight for him, where you do wonder, like, how the fuck did he take that level of punishment? It was like the Ferguson fight, but just without the moment in the 5th round where he actually did break. And then when I see a guy like Marvin Vettori take, who, you know, who's been very active throughout his career, when I see him take a long time off in between, you know, he fought Jared Cannonier in June of 2023. Dolidze's a big, powerful dude to come in against. Even though Roman Dolidze isn't the best, he still took Imavov all 5 rounds. And at the time we thought, oh, that's not good. You know, he looked terrible in that fight. What a shitty main event. And it was a bad looking main event. Majority decision to Imavov. I know point deducted that should have been a unanimous decision. I thought Imavov clearly won 4 of the rounds. But 2 of the rounds were close and 1 of them went to Dolidze. So I actually rated that performance from Dolidze in hindsight, knowing the danger that Imavov has gone on to be. And knowing how good some of the opponents of Imavov have gone on to be. He easily beat Anthony Smith, which I know isn't saying much, but it is a good win to easily destroy Anthony Smith over 3 rounds. And that was on paper Anthony Smith as well, you got to consider. But again, he did have a double threat going into that matchup. Was easily handling Kevin Holland, which isn't that difficult at middleweight. A lot of middleweights seem to do that. I know there was a rib injury, but he was on his way to winning that fight anyway. I like the momentum of Roman Dolidze. 2 fights in a row, fought 3 times in 2024, lost to Imavov, beat Smith up a weight class on short notice, beat Kevin Holland as well. He was supposed to fight Anthony Hernandez, which, you know what, if you know, that actually would have been a very interesting matchup. And I actually wouldn't mind seeing that after this one, because when you shoot on Roman Dolidze, you're in fucking trouble. So in hindsight, that was actually a very interesting matchup that we missed out on. I didn't even realize that. But I'm actually going to go with Roman Dolidze over Marvin Vettori. I would have to assume that Marvin Vettori has improved his game from the first fight that they had. Is there evidence of that? Really, is there evidence of that? When you look at Marvin Vettori, and I like Marvin Vettori, I'm always rooting for him. I think he's sick. But since the first Roman Dolidze fight, it's just been the Cannonier beatdown and then nothing else. You know? It's hard to say, oh, he's improved, because we don't know at all. You know, he was supposed to fight Brendan Allen in April of 2024. Vettori pulled out with an injury. So not only has he had, and Vettori's a guy who's been known to fight through injuries before. So not only has he had a lot of time off, but it's been a lot of time off recovering from the beatdown and now rehabilitating an injury. And Dolidze's got momentum, and I think the finishing potential is on his side. I never see finishing potential on the side of Vettori. I just don't think he's got that in him at the highest level of the sport. Low level, I'm sure he could beat some guys and finish them, and he has done before. I don't think he will finish a top level guy in the UFC. 5 rounds does benefit him, I think, because he does get going in that 3 to 4 range. But I think Dolidze will be able to get this one done. And I also think, with how, and I'm going to bring up judging again. You know, since that Vettori fight for Roman Dolidze, what have we seen Roman Dolidze do since then, if you really go back through it? You'll see Imavov performance, which I thought he looked all right in, even though it was sloppy. To take Imavov to a decision over 5 is pretty impressive. Then he's beat Smith and looked improved in his striking. He did. You know what I mean? Even though it's Anthony Smith and he's shit. Then easily beat Kevin Holland. I'm seeing levels of improvement here, and I have to guess that Vettori's improved. Whereas I kind of can see that Dolidze has. So I'm going to go over Roman Dolidze. His activity proves to me that he's not injured or he hasn't got any major injuries that he's had to deal with. So I'm going to side with Dolidze here. And I'm going to say he wins this one 48-47 decision. But if there is a finish, I think it will go to Dolidze as well. Vettori's not going to shoot in a takedown on Dolidze. And if he does, he's going to be in massive trouble. You know? And if Dolidze shoots on him, Vettori's probably going to stuff it. I would imagine he will stuff the majority of takedowns. But Dolidze could roll for a leg. There's a lot of things Dolidze can do from failing a takedown that's going to tangle you up in that grappling situation. So I think he's just got the options. He's more well-rounded. And I actually am going to go over Roman Dolidze here. And he's a lot bigger than Marvin Vettori as well. So, yeah. And they've sparred together a ton. You know? And I think Dolidze could have got the first fight. And he fights in a way pushing forward, which does benefit you in a close judging situation. I'm going to go over Roman Dolidze getting this one done. 48-47 decision. I think he's an underdog as well. So I've chosen a lot of underdogs here on this card. I went with Duben, who's an underdog. I went with... Who else have I gone with that's an underdog? I went with some others. I'm sure, right? I went with Ryan Spann, who's an underdog. I went with Chidi Njokwani, who's an underdog. And Dolidze, who's an underdog as well. So, best of luck. See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip. It's Vallejos time. Shout out to Kevin Vallejos. Hopefully he wins. Goodbye.